Hey, Piro. So I think we basically agree because what you're calling metaphysics and saying is impossible, I would not define metaphysics as. For me, metaphysics is phenomenological. It's about our experience. It's not claiming knowledge of something beyond experience. However, um, you know, I think we would both agree that reality appears dualistic in the sense that there is um, a sensed world and a sensible world. In other words, there is sentience and there is something sensed. In the old terminology, we would say this is the sensed is the object and the sensible or the sentient is the subject. But instead of conceiving of it in this actually dualistic way as an object, an objective substance, an extended substance in opposition to a subject, an intended or a substance which intends, um, we're seeing it more in a more embodied way by calling it the sensed and the sentient. Now, how exactly the sensed and the sentient interrelate is the question. Um, and I think this is where metaphysics come in. This is where we, to say anything, need to go beyond the sensed or the sentient, the sense able, um, because we are now talking about our own ability to know, um, you know, the sensed and the sensible. And so metaphysics, while it is phenomenological, is basically a phenomenology of language, of our ability to understand the world. Because, maybe there's some kind of thought independent of language, but thought that makes sense must be spoken. Makes sense um, in the sense that it can be shared with others and we can enter into discourse as a result of it. Thought that can't be made discursive, brought to public attention, is somehow not um, coherent. It's not fully formed. Um, so, metaphysics is a phenomenology of language, and when we try to understand language, or maybe not understand it, but um, live language consciously, when we try to come to know what it is that we do when we speak, we're not really um, going outside of experience, but we are um, somehow twisting experience such that there is something called experience and something called description of that experience. Um, there is being, um, and there is the word, logos, language. That's what the human being seems to. Um, that's the kind of world the human being seems to exist within. There is something, and something said about it. There isn't merely a world. There's also a discourse about that world. Um, so the reason metaphysics are so intractable and so controversial is that they're attempting um, to tell us the essence of being, which always is, it's already understood in the question, what is being? Um, to even ask the question of essence is to um, understand being. What is being? Is isness, the middle term in this phrase, in this question, um, is already what the question is asking about. So, you know, that's metaphysics. Is it based in experience? Yes, but it's based in experience already linguistically um, processed and formed. So, while we know that language doesn't create a mental substance entirely separate from nature, in other words, we know that um, language is somehow still in the world. It's not fully stepping outside it to describe it. At the same time, um, it forces us to reflect upon experience in such a way that experience becomes um, less sensory and more spiritual. Um, and again, the language here may be difficult for you, Piro, or for others to use the word spiritual. Um, but by that, it's a description of a feeling that I think we all have when engaging in these types of um, um, introspective exploration or um, philosophical excavation. Um, we end up reaching certain um, ideas or having certain ideas provided to us that we never would have expected to find, and that didn't, at least based on our own experience or my own experience, these ideas don't seem to come from the outside. They seem to be created of themselves from within, uh, and so I call them spiritual. Um, but I think I've covered a lot of territory here, and it's difficult to talk about the nature of talking. So hopefully, I've been understood somewhat, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about it. Thanks for the response, Kuro. Take it easy.